Could The Wild Robot be the best animated movie of the year? Welcome Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of The Wild Robot. Is it good, is it bad, or somewhere right in the middle? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in the film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. And getting right into the synopsis. After a shipwreck leads an intelligent robot to find herself on this island, she must be able to help all these animals that are going on her out, as she's a helper robot that is trying to figure out how to solve the task of what's needed. And getting right into the positive, first off, I love to talk about the messaging to this film. It's a film about motherhood, what it means to connect to its communities and all that, diving into the culture of all these different animals based on this robot. It manages to empathize with humans, connect the story with all that, while taking place in a story with the robot leading all of these other animals. And while there's humans here and there throughout the story, in certain moments, they're clearly not the importance of the story, what is all going on throughout, because it manages to tackle this story with all of these animals, with the robot, and characterize them to be like human behaviors, but manage to act upon the messaging of learning languages, learning how to do certain things, what it means to be a mother-like figure, and manage to tackle that onto this idea of this gooseling that becomes a runt, and everything that goes about that, hard times becoming a mother, that the robot has to take on all these tasks, and the commitment that she takes, and certain things that goes about with regrets or anti-regrets, trying to resolve the past wrongs that you've done, and being grateful for everything that our mother-like figures do for us, that manages to make this a family fun film that has great messaging, great animation. The flow throughout is fantastic. Chris Sanders is the director. He's done the first How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, Call of the Wild, just to name a few, and all of them are really exhibiting to what this story has to be held to be something that you can really latch onto, really love the characters, attached to certain characters, whether you relate to the story more than those that don't relate to the story, or if you're just being able to enjoy the time. There's quite a few jokes here that actually land, and even when they don't hit as well for me effectively, they don't feel annoying or disturbing, disrupting the flow of the story. So there's something to be had for everyone with this sort of film, that you can't really hate it for what it's going after. It has a lighthearted feeling story that manages to latch onto whichever type of audience member, whether you love animation, and those that don't love animation as much still may be able to find an appreciation for what the story has to be held. It's not necessarily the most creative or visually stunning look at what it's doing with its animation. I've seen this type of animation before, but it's not necessarily anything that disturbs the flow of the story, what you're expecting out of it, and still there's an appreciation for the style that it utilizes, as it really builds upon the story and the characters as a whole, which takes me into the mixed elements, to which I just have to say there's some sense of predictability where it's not necessarily something I've seen fully on before, but it feels like there could be a little bit more to the story that throws you off the loop of what's going on. It's not necessarily predictable in one general sense of how exactly it will come out, but the general essence of the story, it has the outcome you may expect for it to flow onto. There's certain ideas, certain narrative beats where the tempo is slightly off. It takes place over the span of a year, from spring to spring, managing to carry on the life of this gooseling and the wild robot. And what that all tackles has a couple story beats that feel offbeat because of how they choose to divide the time between spring, summer, fall, and winter, and spring again, and showing the importance of one of those seasons that feels slightly out of place. It's not a quarter per season of the film that's showing, and so I'm not sure what to expect out of that. It's not necessarily too distracting, but it did feel like there's less of an importance to one particular season when it takes up less time than some of the others. And there's also something about the threat of the film, what we get out of robots, but also certain things that feels a little out of place as well because of certain aspects to what the flow asks for the film, certain parts where the threat feels diminished in one sense because of how long it takes to get to that particular threat, when there's a couple different things that is going on with the villains, what is all taking place with the problem of the story, where the general problem may be based on the motherhood that this robot is taking care of and what is all going on with that thematic element. But when you include the physical threat, that's not so big with part of the problems that's going on throughout. It sort of disrupts just a little bit of what the flow is, what I'm asking and what I'm expecting out of the film. That isn't necessarily something I'm trying to nitpick, but it was just part of my personal experience where I may have expected too much, or it just felt absent to where the story felt like it was leading to as a whole. So that's just my personal review for The Wild Robot, which I have to rate as simply 8 out of 10. One of the better animated movies of the year for sure. Let me know all your thoughts on The Wild Robot. Is it one of the best of the year? Is it just not your thing? Make sure to like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about a lot of cinema as a whole. Let me know all your thoughts and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.